What's going on, everybody? Tusa Eggers here. I figured I'd share what I do in my off season. So it's late February right now, and I started a project, realized it was going to take a lot more money than I have available right now, so I figured I'd work on stuff in the shop. I just got done doing a whole bunch of rearranging, and then as I was putting stuff away, I realized I had all this scrap material taking up space. So that's what we're doing right now. I just got done doing all of the copper wiring, tubing, trying to figure out these doggone scrap yards. I can't believe they don't actually have some sort of write-up that tells you specifically what copper number 1 is, what copper number 2 is. You know, I actually went to my local scrap yard and like, oh, well, we don't really have that, but they have their price listing. Fortunately, the guy was nice enough to take me in the back and show me all the different bins and what they are, but there's still a lot more questions because I have, you know, a lot of good copper, a lot of okay copper, a lot of wiring. I've got motors, I've got aluminum, I've got brass, and even those things get broken down into different things. So anyway, I'll get more into that on another video, and I know there's a lot of scrapping videos out there, but right now I wanted to show you the motors. Let's take a quick look at that. All right, so I counted up 29 motors I got sitting here, and I've also got this 18 kilowatt stator that come off my generator that I had to repair or make a repair to. This particular stator is bad. This thing right here weighs probably 80 to 100 pounds all by itself. It's pretty big. Then I've got some transformers back here, a whole bunch of them, probably 200-300 pounds in transformers. I don't know what the yield is going to be for the copper that I get out of them. Then a bunch of little stuff, which if you watch any of the other scrapping videos, little motors like this out of a washing machine or dryer, or, you know, this one I don't remember where it came from. It looks like a washing machine motor. But anyway, you know, ceiling fans, all kinds of weird stuff. Like that's for a furnace. That one over there is for a furnace. We got the blowers, another ceiling fan. So anyway, I figured I'd show you the motor, how I'm tackling these motors. And I've seen a kind of a combination of how several different folks do it, and I'm going to show you what I come up with as the best.
So this part really did take a long time, probably 3 or 4 hours to go through all of these motors. But the basic process was to take off any of the bracketry, take any of the wires, wire nuts, whatever that was left on the motor, get rid of that. Then pull the through bolt out, knock off the end caps, yank out the rotor, and then set the shell and stator off to the side in one big pile. So I had 3 or 4 of these motors. These are furnace motors, and they've got a lot of really nice cast aluminum in the housing units. And don't forget that most of the end caps of the rest of the motors are all cast aluminum. So clean those up and save all that, because that's worth a lot more than just scrap aluminum.
All right, so there we go. We got 19 of these motors shelled out. One of them ended up being a DC motor, which knowing that now, I probably would have kept it and tried to sell it separately. That rotor, or actually armature is what it's called, it's pretty stout, and I'm really kind of bummed. It's probably worth a lot of money assembled as a unit, but oh well, too late now. I'll figure out how to take those apart later. But next, I'm gonna go ahead and do one cut. I've got these 3 shells or stators right here with the cases still on them. I'm gonna do one cut with the angle grinder, and then the rest of them I'm just gonna use a plasma cutter and just zip right through all, minus that one, so it'd be 18 over here. This one here is a cast, so I'll probably use the angle grinder on that one as well. But the rest of them I should be able to zip right through, and then we're gonna try using the log splitter to cut open these stators.
So this was that cast iron motor, and it turns out that the stator and the case are all cast iron, one complete unit, so cutting it and knocking the shell off wasn't an option. And then furthermore, it turns out that there was steel dowel pins in each of the 4 corners, so I had to chisel those dowel pins off, knock them out, and then I was able to actually split the case in half and pull the windings out of each half.
So as you can see, that does not take very long. And once it's loose like that, that's how quick it goes. So we'll set that one aside. Now we're gonna try the plasma cutter. So that's what I was kind of afraid of. You got to do it on a hollow spot. Because as soon as I hit the iron core, it started spraying all over. I don't know if I'll light this wood on fire, but we'll see. All right, so it does not like a crappy ground. Where I can, I'm just putting the ground on the windings themselves. It's giving me a good enough grounding point for the plasma cutter. Again, finding a flat spot in here to cut against, it's kind of clutch. And there's not, like this one has no flat spots. However, right along this seam, there's a little bit in there. So that's what I'm gonna go for. I always try to knock them out towards the wire side. But in some cases, like this one, those wires are going to get bound up, so you either got to push them through or knock it out the other direction. There we go, 18 stators. And I got 2 extras that I did yesterday. Cha-ching. All right, so now I'm sure everybody has seen the machete method. Here's a quick clip of me doing that yesterday, giving this a shot, and it worked out all right. It already started to split. Now it's going in. I try to do it closer to the front edge, like the front third. It's less harsh on your hand back here. And then that way, once you get further down there, you can actually hit up here and it'll keep pushing it through. All right, once I get to that point, I knock it loose, flip it 180, finish it off. Come on. Almost there. Okay. And now I have this, it's a type of mower blade. It's hardened steel. I put a nice sharp edge on it, and I made this little doodad for the air gun, the impact gun. Not impact gun, air hammer, sorry. And I'm gonna see if this works any better for splitting these things in half. Then we're off to the wood splitter. I mounted one of these on the wood splitter. First, I'm gonna try the machete with the air hammer. Wow, that's actually working way better than I thought it would. Try to get it so you guys can watch. Dang, that's pretty cool. That's really cool. Just got to keep it from rolling on me. Wow, look at that. Air hammer and machete. Let's try the other one now. This time we're gonna use the lawnmower blade. This is significantly thicker than the machete, so I don't know. And it doesn't have a handle. Yeah, I have to say, if you're gonna do it on the floor, machete is definitely the way to go. It's just so much thinner. Beautiful. Look at that. Holy cow, that worked out amazing. All right, now on to the wood splitter. All right, so I did come out here and try this a little bit ago. First one got really mangled. Second two, not much better. Tried putting a log in between it, didn't work. And that was just using the standard splitting wedge. So what I'm hoping is that now that I've got the thin blade on here and some sticks, we should be able to make a difference. Just hold it right there. Holy Nikes. Whoa. My weld's broke. All right, blade is fixed. New board in place. Let's make it happen. That board already. got like this plating or something here. I think as long as I can get it started, it should be fine. So I've now made 2 special air hammer chisels. Cut a groove into this chisel, or air hammer chisel, welded in a chunk of that blade. And I'm going to show you what it does. I have 1 stator left. This is one that I tried in the wood splitter and it started to just buckle it. So I'm going to try to cut it the rest of the way in half using that. This is basically the same concept as using the machete, just with an air hammer. I would say this is probably the best way to go. If you have air tools and an air hammer, holy crap, was that easy and clean. You're not getting any waste out of the, grinding dust. And personally, I like cutting them in half, the stators in half, rather than just cutting off one side of windings. You're gonna have if you cut just one side off, you're gonna, especially with a grinder, you're gonna have grinding dust, but then you gotta pull the windings all the way through. So if you gotta cut it anyway, you might as well just cut it in half. Then your windings come out much, much, much easier. All right, so I got one more trick up my sleeves to try with this stuff. This is a 3-ton pneumatic over hydraulic jack, all right? All right, so we made some modifications to this setup here. Made this base plate that just sits, actually, let me get some of this stuff out of the way. So this base plate, I just drilled a hole in the middle, just enough to fit around that nut, that top nut. And the whole purpose of that is to mount these locking mechanisms. These hold the iron core of the stator. And it's a bit cumbersome, no doubt, but it works really good. I'll show you here in a minute. I don't really like this setup. I took some old screwdrivers and made S-hooks out of it, and they go on the inside, but you'll see that here in a minute. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but it does work really well. I mounted the chain here, and if I were to do this more often, I would probably make a steel strap that went around, but I wanted it to be removable, so I welded these nuts or bolts to the base plate, and then I can just pop this chain right off of here. But so far seems to work pretty good. I've only done a couple just to test it, and that's that pile there. We're getting ready to do these ones right now. Okay, they're both in place, and just raise it up. That's it. Let's try this one. This one's a bit mangled from that wood splitter. See how it's kind of bent? So it's probably going to be a little bit tougher. So again, I'll get a couple spots where I can slide the hooks in. Probably don't even need to get all the hooks in. That's good enough. So 2 of my hooks fell out. Like I said, these ones are not that tight. Some of them aren't, anyway. I'm gonna try this other method that I was thinking about. Thinking I could just run a couple screwdrivers right through it. Before, you saw I used them bolts. The bolts just were bending. So I'm gonna try a screwdriver, go through a chain link, there, like that. So screwdriver goes through the windings, through the chain. That'll hold it, hopefully. I don't think this will be as good as using the hooks, but we'll see. Wow, okay. All but one. Oh, that one's coming too. Yep, all right. So that worked out pretty good. Definitely cumbersome, but this is just proof of concept. I'm just seeing what works, what doesn't. I mean, it's still faster than chucking it up in the vise and beating on it for 10 minutes. All right, so final thoughts. Wood splitter works really, really well, but this one you can see is a bit wobbly, and I should have put an extra support right in here because it started to kind of tweak off to one side and then deflect just a little bit, enough to make the core, the steel core, kind of start bending weird. Sometimes it worked great, like these worked beautiful. Some of them you saw were really twisted up. I know you're not going to go out and buy a wood splitter just to split motor stators. So if you don't have a wood splitter, this honestly is my next favorite method. Don't get me wrong, the machete works great, but it's very manual. You're going to mar up which obviously once you make the decision to use your machete, but they're inexpensive, you know, 20, 30 bucks. And honestly, you could probably even just whack off a section of your machete and turn it into the air hammer chisel. But this was my favorite method, barring this working better. This is definitely faster and easier, but it would need a little more tweaking to make it perfect. And obviously, like I said earlier, it's a big investment. But an air hammer, if you can get an air supply and an air hammer, a bigger air hammer is going to be better. You're looking at probably $100 for a decent Ingersoll Rand air hammer. I like the quick attach one, you know, without the spring doohickey up there. That's just annoying to deal with. But you saw it work. It just splits right through the copper. It leaves pretty nice cut marks. You know, you're not really wasting any of the copper material. So barring an air supply, if you don't, then I would recommend the machete method. And they all work really well. Again, I found splitting the alternator, or I'm sorry, the stators in half more conducive to the extraction of the windings. You saw that winding extractor. I think something like that you could do with a bottle jack or really any kind. There's another video of a guy that's got a hand crank method. I do like his clamp method for holding the core, the iron core. That definitely is more user-friendly. I just wasn't ready to build the whole base assembly. I only had 30 motors. And you know, with that said, this isn't what I do all the time. This was just a one-off to kind of clean up the barn. I figured, you know, I make videos anyway. Let's go ahead and see what we can come up with to make this process easier and share it with everybody else. But if I was doing this more, I would definitely come up with more of a permanent base for that winding extractor. I like the ease of it, and when it did work, it worked great. So finding a better way to clamp onto the windings. Now, most of the professional machines that I've seen have some sort of like tongs that are held with chains, or like a scissor action tong, you know, so when the machine pulls, it pulls them tight. And even that other video where I said the guy's got the crank thing, he even has 2 sets of tongs that are hooked through a loop and chains, so they actually squeeze down when it pulls up. I didn't want to convert any of my tongs. I'm not doing it that much. I was doing these 30. So this was just, you know, off the cuff to see what I could come up with, kind of on the easy, on the cheap. And it worked okay. If I had a better method to grab onto the windings and a better method to hold onto the core, that obviously would work much better, but any sort of jack would work good. Back to the cutting it in half, I think using a shop press would also work, but there's a lot of manual pumping on that machine, or on the shop press, or the jack. So I think honestly the air chisel is going to be the way to go for that. We use the plasma cutter and the angle grinder to open up the casings for the stators, and obviously the plasma cutter is quicker, but not by a whole lot. You can zip through the casing with the angle grinder in probably 20 seconds, 30 seconds tops. Plasma cutter does it in like 5 to 10 seconds. You're not really saving that much time, and honestly you're not going to go out and buy a $1,000 to $2,000 plasma cutter just to scrap out motors, you know, so let's be realistic on that. Now I'm taking everything down to the bare minimums. You know, the armatures or rotors, I'm breaking them all the way down to where it's a bare armature. I'm pulling the bearings, I'm pulling the fans, I'm pulling the seals. The end caps for the motor itself, most of them are cast aluminum. That's worth more as just pure cast, not dirty aluminum. So I take the time to pull all the metal, the steel that's out of the inside, any steel that's on those, even if I have to break pieces of it off, because the cast aluminum is worth considerably more than dirty aluminum. You know, time versus money. If you're scrapping, you know, you probably got a little more time than you do money or tools. So to me, it's worth it. The armatures, I don't know, or the rotors, I don't know if it's worth, you know, ripping those all the way down, because a lot of the motors have little governor ends or contact ends, you know, stuff like that. Is it worth taking the time? Because that is time consuming, and I don't know yet. I haven't even made one trip to the scrapyard yet. I'm sure other folks out there could chime in here, which honestly I'd really appreciate that. I don't know if my particular scrapyard, and that's one thing I'm learning right now, is that every scrapyard is a little bit different. You know, what they want and who they sell to, it all kind of makes a little bit of a difference. So I'm going to talk to my guys and get this nailed down. I'm probably going to make myself a cheat sheet, you know, just take notes on everything. That way I can share it with everybody else. All right, so that's it for this video. I do still have a couple armatures, that 18 kV stator from my generator. I don't know how much of this stuff I have right now. Probably 50 to 75 pounds would be my guess. And I still have those transformers to do as well. So stick around, I'll be making another video on scrapping those out. But I got a lot of cleanup to do right now. It is such a mess in there. I got all the steel to sort and sift through, and all the copper that's laying on the ground, and all these windings. I got to get all the tape and strings off it. So hey, if you like this kind of stuff, please take a second, hit that like button, consider subscribing. I do all sorts of stuff. If you got any questions or comments or suggestions for future videos, please throw that in the comment section. I reply to pretty much everybody. Hey, I appreciate you watching. Keep yanking on them bootstraps. We'll catch you on the next video.